Hello and welcome to Friday, March 27th. Couple things. The first quiz you took was on the treble clef. The second quiz you took was note identification on the bass clef. And today's quiz is on note identification in the grand staff. So that's the bass and the treble. Couple ways to remember notes. Remember, in the treble clef, the spaces spell out F-A-C-E. Remember, in the bass clef, the spaces spell out A-C-E-G from bottom to top. All cows eat grass. Remember that in the treble clef, that's called the G clef because if you look where that little crosshair is, okay, that crosses the G line. If you look on the bass clef, if you look where those two dots are in the bass clef, that is the called the F clef because those two dots are right in the middle of the F. That'll give you a benchmark. And then the last benchmark is if you look in the grand staff, the only note that's in between the treble and the bass clef with a line through it is the middle C. So hopefully that helps. But now we're on chapter 4. He may have shaved off his one long eyebrow and grown a beard over his scraggly chin, but there was no way he could hide the tattoo of an eye on his ankle. Chapter 4. One of the most difficult things to think about in life is one's regrets. Something will happen to you and you will do the wrong thing, and for years afterward you will wish that you had done something different. For instance, sometimes when I am walking along the seashore or visiting the grave of a friend, I will remember a day a long time ago when I didn't bring a flashlight with me to a place where I should have brought a flashlight and the results were disastrous. Why didn't I bring a flashlight? I think to myself, even though it's too late to do anything about it, if I'd only brought a flashlight. And for years after this moment in the lives of the Baudelaire orphans, Klaus thought of the time when he and his siblings realized that Stefano was actually Count Olaf, and was filled with regret that he didn't call out to the driver of the taxi cab who was beginning to drive down the driveway. Stop! Klaus would think to himself, even though it was too late to do anything about it. Stop! Take this man away! And of course, it is perfectly understandable that Klaus and his sisters were too surprised to act so quickly, but Klaus would lie awake in bed years later thinking that maybe, just maybe, if he had acted in time, he could have saved Uncle Monty's life. But he didn't. As the Baudelaire orphans stared at Count Olaf, the taxi drove back down the driveway, and the children were alone with their nemesis, a word which here means the worst enemy you could imagine. Olaf smiled at them the way Uncle Monty's Mongolian mean-steak would smile when a white mouse was placed in a cage each day for dinner. Perhaps one of you might carry my suitcase into the room, he suggested in a wheezy voice. The ride along that smelly road was dull and unpleasant, and I am very tired. Well, if anyone deserved to travel along Lousy Lane, Violet said, glaring at him, it is you, Count Olaf. We will certainly not help you with your luggage, because we will not let you into this house. Olaf frowned at the orphans, and then looked this way and that, as if he expected to see someone hiding behind the snake-shaped hedges. Who is Count Olaf? He asked quizzically. My name is Stefano, and I am here to assist Montgomery with his upcoming expedition to Peru. And I assume that you are the 3 midgets who will work as servants in the Montgomery home? We are not midgets, Klaus said sternly. We are children, and you are not Stefano. You are Count Olaf, and you may have a full-grown beard, and you may have shaved your eyebrow, but you are still the same despicable person, and we will not let you into this house. And Futa! Sonny shrieked, which probably meant something like, I agree. And Count Olaf looked at each of the Baudelaire orphans, his eyes shining brightly as if he were telling a joke. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but if I did, and if I were this Count Olaf you speak of, I would think that you were being very rude. And if I thought you were rude, I might get angry. And if I got angry, who knows what I might do. The children watched as Count Olaf raised his scrawny arms in a sort of shrug. It probably isn't necessary to remind you just how violent he could be, but it certainly wasn't necessary at all to remind the Baudelaires. Klaus could still feel the bruise on his face from the time Count Olaf had struck him when they were living in his house. Sonny still ached from being stuffed into a bird cage and dangled from the tower where he made his evil plans. And while Violet had not been the victim of any physical abuse from this terrible man, she had almost been forced to marry him, and that was enough to make her pick up his suitcase and drag it slowly towards the door to the house. Higher, Count Olaf said. Lift it higher. I don't want it dragged around the ground like that. Klaus and Sonny hurried to help Violet with the suitcase, but even the three of them carrying it made them stagger. It was misery enough that Count Olaf had reappeared in their lives just when they were feeling so comfortable and safe with Uncle Monty. But to actually be helping this awful person enter their home was almost too much to bear. Olaf followed closely behind them, and the three children could smell his stale breath as they brought the suitcase indoors and set it on the carpet beneath the painting of the entwined snakes. Thank you, orphans, Count Olaf said, shutting the front door behind him. Now, Dr. Montgomery said my room would be waiting upstairs. I suppose I can carry my luggage from here. Now run along. We'll have lots of time to get to know one another later. We already know you, Count Olaf, Violet said. You obviously haven't changed one bit. So, let's stop there. If you have any problems with your assignments, let me know. If you want to Google Zoom today, I think 2 o'clock we're meeting, so check the stream page of Google Classroom to be sure. I believe it's 2 o'clock for 6th and 7th grade, and you can ask questions there, or we can just hang out and see what we want to do. All right, we will smell you later.